She giggled. Marriage would ruin my fun. I pocketed the ring and walked away. Now she's alone and divorced, and I'm celebrating 5 years with my wife and our twins. I never thought a single laugh could change the entire direction of my life. But here we are. I can still see it, the dim glow of the planetarium lights in Albuquerque, the simulation of meteor showers starting exactly when I planned it, the emerald ring catching those artificial streaks of light, just like I imagined. Everything was perfect. Everything except her reaction. Her name was Amber, and for 3 years I honestly believed she and I were building a future together. She was a ceramic artist with this wild imagination, a pair of steady hands that could shape clay into featherlight bowls, and a way of talking about life that made everyday stuff feel poetic. I fell hard, and I fell stupid. We talked about marriage a dozen times. Kids, homes, places we'd live, the whole thing. She had pointed out that exact ring months before on a walk through Old Town. She held up to the window and said, "It looks like it captures light that doesn't even exist." I should have known I was the only one who meant those conversations seriously, but love has a way of blurring the warning signs, doesn't it? So when I got down on one knee and opened that ring box under a sky full of fake falling stars, I expected tears or shock or literally any reaction normal people have during proposals. Instead, she giggled. Not nervous laughter, not overwhelmed laughter, just giggling, like she walked into the wrong room and someone told her a joke she didn't get. Marriage? Now? Oh, God, no. Marriage would completely ruin my fun. She said it so casually, like the idea of a life with me was this cute misunderstanding. She kept talking while I stayed frozen on one knee, how she was applying to art residencies in Europe, how she was too young to be domesticated, how she didn't want anything tying her down. Meanwhile, the elderly planetarium operator, who'd helped me coordinate, everything looked like he wished he could disappear straight into the wall. I don't even remember standing up. I just remember pocketing the ring, walking out the door, and letting the cold night air hit me like reality itself was slapping me awake. That night, I drove 2 hours to my cousin's ranch outside Santa Fe. Didn't talk. Didn't cry. Just sat on his porch with a beer while the whole thing replayed in my head, like a movie I regretted buying a ticket for. The next day, I returned the ring. The antique dealer didn't ask questions. She just nodded softly, like she'd seen this story 100 times before. Then I went back to the apartment Amber and I had shared for a year and a half, while she was at her Tuesday pottery class, and packed my life into my truck. I left the furniture, the dishes, the stuff we picked together. Took only my tools, my clothes, and the motorcycle I'd been restoring. Left her a short note telling her I was moving out and would arrange a time to collect whatever I missed. When I finally turned my phone back on, the screen lit up like a slot machine. 47 texts, 15 voicemails. She started with, "Are you okay?" Then moved into, "Where are you?" and eventually escalated into, "You're overreacting to a conversation about timing." She couldn't understand that her laughter didn't just ruin a moment. It revealed the truth of our entire relationship. And once you see something clearly, you can't unsee it. What followed next was desperation wrapped in denial. She called my sister, my parents, even my supervisor at the restoration shop, telling everyone I was having a breakdown. She painted the proposal situation as a miscommunication, as if I hallucinated her laughing in my face. But here's the thing about humiliation. Once you feel it that deeply, something in you locks into place. That place feels like clarity. For weeks later, I accepted a job on the East Coast, Charleston, South Carolina, restoring vintage motorcycles. My supervisor had recommended me to an old colleague who was expanding operations. I didn't hesitate. I packed my rebuilt Triumph on a trailer, loaded my truck, and drove across the desert like a man trying to outrun the ghost of life he almost tied himself to. And God, the silence leaving New Mexico felt like oxygen. I changed my number on day 2 in Charleston, blocked Amber everywhere, told mutual friends I didn't want updates. Surprisingly, most of them understood. Turns out they'd seen the signs in her before I did. But Amber didn't take the hint. She called my sister repeatedly, showed up at my old workplace demanding my new address, created fake social media accounts that cropped up like weeds. She told people I was in a quarter-life crisis, As if moving on from someone who insulted you at your most vulnerable moment qualified as insanity. Meanwhile, Charleston became home in a way I hadn't expected. The vintage motorcycle community that was tight-knit, talented, and unbelievably welcoming. I found myself learning blacksmithing because so many old bikes needed custom metalwork, and somewhere between the hammer strikes and the heat of the forge, I realized I was healing. I made sculptures on the side, blending steel with repurposed motorcycle parts. A gallery picked up my work. Then another. I wasn't just rebuilding bikes anymore. I was rebuilding myself. 2.5 years passed quietly, productively, beautifully. Then at a maritime museum fundraiser, I met Hannah, a marine archaeologist who specialized in Civil War shipwrecks. Smart, confident, direct. The type of woman who looked you in the eyes when she spoke and meant everything she said. She wasn't intimidated by commitment. She valued it. We clicked instantly. Her world of underwater history merged with my world of mechanical restoration in this weirdly natural way. Weekends became dives in documenting shipwreck artifacts. I'd never felt so aligned with someone before, not just emotionally, but in the rhythm of day-to-day life. When I made a public Instagram account to showcase my metalwork, Amber found it within hours. Suddenly the fake accounts were back. The cryptic comments. The veiled insults. The bitterness dripping through every word. Hannah blocked each account calmly, told me, "Document everything just in case," and kissed my forehead like it wasn't even worth the emotional energy. That's when I knew, really knew, that I'd found the person I was supposed to build a life with. We married in a simple ceremony at a restored plantation overlooking Charleston Harbor. Our wedding rings were custom forged using metal from a Civil War anchor Hannah had studied during one of her dives. It wasn't flashy or extravagant. It was meaningful, honest, ours. We spent our honeymoon diving in the Caribbean while I photographed her uncovering centuries-old pottery fragments. It felt like living inside a quiet kind of magic. Meanwhile, back in New Mexico, Amber impulsively married a cryptocurrency day trader named Tyler. 3 months in, Las Vegas wedding, designer dress, champagne-soaked photos, performative independence packaged as spontaneous love. 16 months later, it imploded, publicly, loudly, dramatically. Mutual friends said everything from money issues to emotional instability played a part. All I thought was, that could have been my life if she'd said yes. 5 years into my marriage with Hannah, 5 years filled with laughter and restoration projects and dives, and our twin sons learning to identify seashells, Amber messaged me. A long message. Too long. It started with congratulations and drifted into regret. Rejecting your proposal was the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't understand what partnership meant back then. You offered stability and love, and I thought it was a trap. I wish we could reconnect, even as friends. I read half before stopping, not out of anger, but because the weight of the past didn't belong in the life I'd built. I looked over at Hannah kneeling in the sand, showing our boys how to tell pottery shards from regular stones. Her hair pulled back, sun catching the small flecks of gold in her eyes, completely absorbed in teaching them something she loved. That was the moment it hit me with absolute clarity. Amber wasn't the villain. She also wasn't the one who got away. She was simply the wrong person for the man I was back then, and the perfect person to push me toward the life I was meant to have. I deleted her message, blocked her again, felt nothing but a strange softness in the space where the old hurt used to live. Because the truth is, she didn't break me. She redirected me. And the life I have now, the marriage built on respect, the career that fulfills me, the kids who run at me like I hung the moon, none of it would have existed if she'd said yes that night in the planetarium. Sometimes rejection isn't the end of your story. It's the door that leads you into the life you didn't know you deserved. And God, I'm so grateful I walked through it.